Hey, what's up, everybody? On this episode, we're going to be talking about how to know if it's the right time for you to start a podcast. And this is important to know no matter what level you're at, whether you're just starting out online or you've been online for a while. So, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. So, this is actually one of the biggest reasons why people don't start a podcast is they don't know when to start one. And there's a lot of things that come into play and which I'll lay out, things you should consider before you start. Because like I say all the time, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if you are going to get into it, you want to make sure you know everything ahead of time and that you're consistent. That's the number one thing. And a lot of things in life is being consistent, but especially in podcasting, because you have to discover what works and you have to test and you're not going to know, and you have to build trust with your audience over time. So for me personally, I started a podcast for three main reasons, and I'll break down these reasons as well for you to kind of know how to think about this for yourself. So the first one was, it was something that I was very interested in. My first podcast also wasn't this podcast. It was a different podcast. It was a health podcast. It might still be out there, but it was like 2016, 2017, maybe earlier than that actually. I don't even remember. But when I was doing it back then, I grew a couple thousand followers on Instagram and it worked very well. My strategies that I had just interviewing people on Instagram. First of all, the reason I started was because I had a big interest in it. So that's number one. It has to be something you have a passion or interest in because it is a long play and you have to be like, you have to care because that comes across. When people listen, they can tell like, oh, this person cares or they put an effort, etc. So that's number one. Number two, you have to do some research and you have to feel like you have a way of viewing things or a different opinion on most of the other people in your market. And for me, this podcast and the other first podcast I did, I felt like a lot of the stuff I cared about or I thought that was important wasn't being spoken about. So it was more of a drive. Like you need that drive to feel like, man, like I'm going to fill a gap in the market and I'm going to like rise up and become the best at this one thing. If you don't have that drive, it's hard to grow a podcast or to stay consistent with a podcast because you don't feel like you're actually fulfilling a purpose or you're like doing something different, that mission, so to speak. And number three is the skills. So whether that's, like my company, I have like people hire us to do that part, the skills part, they have the drive and they have the passion. But, if you're starting out, that could be you. It could be hiring out if you already have a lot of money and you have a business. Could be either hiring an agency or hiring freelancers to help you with pieces. If you're not willing to learn the skills to edit audio, to publish, a lot of the stuff, you can either learn it in a course, like we have courses, or YouTube videos, etc. It's not that difficult. We have an ultimate guide too to podcasting that's pretty lengthy. So those are the three things that you want to have in place. You want to have the passion or interest. You want to have the drive to feel like you're different or feel like what you want to do is going to be different. If you don't have that, you're going to be like, people are going to notice too that you're the same as everybody else. And third is you want to have the skills to be able to execute on the actual format of podcasting. Editing, publishing, the whole nine. Nowadays, when I started, podcasting was much simpler. 2016, I was doing Instagram, but I was like there wasn't a lot of people doing Instagram in the health space for promoting a podcast. And I was doing a lot of audiograms. I wasn't even doing video. I was just doing audio. But nowadays, like you need to be doing video if you want to stand out, get attention, funnel traffic from social media to your podcast. Video is going to perform much better. Audio works if you have like an email list or if you already have a passionate audience. But if you want to get that initial buzz, people need to see your face. They need to kind of like feel like their experience. It's just a different experience, And then YouTube, obviously YouTube is a video platform. That's a whole different story on how you get discovered on YouTube. Like that's a whole different episode. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, if it's the right time, you're probably in two buckets. You're either starting out online or in your passion in this market, or you're already experienced, you have your professional, etc. Obviously, you could be in between those two, but we're just going to go on opposite ends of the spectrum here for this example. If you're starting out, to me, it's amazing how powerful a podcast is. From like, connections can be epic, like the right connection. And for me, myself, like being able to start out and learn from others who like I looked up to, and using a podcast as a gateway to that. And with some of them, surprisingly build a relationship with them, whether it's like, I want to work with them, work for them, like so many different angles, JV with them. To me, that was such like a huge value. Like I don't know where else you can do that. Maybe with like if you had a YouTube channel, but that YouTube channel takes a lot of work. Podcast is just hop on Zoom, record, bada boom, bada bang, and you're done. Not to mention, you don't have to be the expert if you're starting out in the field. You just have to get the experts and interview them, which makes it a lot easier when you're trying to make a name for yourself and starting out and learning. And then over time, you can start, making your own content and adding your own 2 cents to things. Now, if you're already a successful business owner or successful in what you do, there's a few more things you want to take in consideration. If you're starting out, usually you have a lot of time. So it's not a big thing to consider is how much time is it take you because you have the time to spare. But if you're already busy and you have a lot of things already working for you, going for you, you want to be more deliberate. And when you start a podcast, and I would say like, don't start it when you're launching other things. You want to have the time dedicated, for us, like when we're launching a podcast, it's about like a 4 or 6 week process because we take seriously like doing the research, doing the branding, and everything involved with creating the content, making sure your setup's good, testing your setup, doing a lot of episodes ahead of time so you have a bank of content so you're not going back to back. If you're going to get started, record like 8 or so when you release it to the world, you're not like going hand to mouth. You're not like scrambling for more content because then you're more likely to fail, especially early on because it's tougher. It's a new skill, just like anything else you're learning early on. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew. But for me, then if you're experiencing, and if you're a vet or if you're kind of successful at what you do, this. If you're experiencing a situation where you feel like you're not posting enough content online, podcast is one of the easiest ways to solve that, especially if it's video, because it's long form. You can strip so much from a podcast, whether it's blog posts, whether it's emails, teaser clips, copywriting, quotes, episodes on YouTube, on your on your podcast too. Those episodes, if it's an important topic, it would still be relevant a year or 2 years from now, and you could still have it part of like an email series. If someone joins your email list, they're still being shown your most popular episodes. Or if you have frequently asked questions, you bring them to the podcast and you give them a long form format for them to not to only answer their question, but for them to get to know, like, and trust you more and go deeper and dive in a longer format with you is the best way to build affinity to people to follow you. And then also just in the market in general, for you to kind of stand out and be like an authority in whatever message you're trying to push or drive out there to everybody. And I hear this all the time, is podcasting saturated? Is it too late? Let me just be the first to tell you to get that out of your head, because it's like saying, is writing a book too late? No, it's like, I mentioned this in one of my last episodes, but it's a medium. It's not a gimmick. It's not an algorithm. It's not like TikTok where it's like there could be a competitor tomorrow. Podcast is audio content, long form on demand. It's not a platform. There's no competition. It's a way to it's like radio, but for smartphones and devices. So as long as you need to talk to people, it will never be saturated. Now, certain markets can start to look the same and sound the same. And that's why I said it's important to figure out, what do you feel like is not being spoken of or not being shared, or you feel like is important that you can highlight more in a specific industry, that you want to have that in place. Because then you'll have more of a drive to do more, be more, evolve, create better, unique content that people want to listen to and it actually impacts them because they're not getting it anywhere else. And that's kind of how you punch your way up and you start to become popular in a market, is by kind of these principles that compound over time. So yeah, if you feel like this made sense, and this is something you resonate with, then that means that it's time for you to start a podcast. As long as you agree with all the points I made. If you want personal help, obviously legacypodcasting.com. You can book a call if you're looking for done-for-you help. If you want information, we have a course, podcastlaunchchallenge.com. Walks you through everything step by step. If you want to do it yourself, if you're starting out, and that's done by me and my partner, Ryan. It's a great course. We've had hundreds of people in there. But also you can ask me on Instagram any questions you have, because I know there's probably a lot I didn't cover. when it comes to starting a podcast, but it's, I like to keep it simple. Simple is always better and it gets the job done. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode. If you like this episode, share it on Instagram. I'll repost it. Tag me at I am Daxy, and I'll see you later. Peace out.